Apple TV is the streaming home of a new horror series that not only combines some of the best bits of Stephen King and R.L. Stine stories but also perfectly switches genres. Stephen King and R.L. Stine have two distinct styles of horror storytelling. While their stories might share a few parallels, the two prolific authors are known for adopting their own unique tropes and devices in the genre. For the most part, R.L. Stine's books, in the iconic Goosebumps series, are defined by absurdity and childish humor. While Stephen King, too, is known for exploring the absurd and the bizarre with his horror stories, his books are usually far more serious in tone. Apple TV's Widow's Bay somehow combines both brands of horror storytelling. It gives us the best of both worlds by blending Stephen King-like psychological dread with the campy unpredictability of an R.L. Stine story. Widow's Bay is not directly based on any R.L. Stine or Stephen King books. It has its own distinct identity in the horror genre, explaining why it has a near-perfect Rotten Tomatoes score of 97%. However, traces of the two horror authors' stories can be found throughout the show, making it even more enthralling and scary. What is Apple TV's Widow's Bay about? Widow's Bay's story primarily unfolds on the titular island where the mayor, Tom Loftus, Matthew Rhys, is determined to boost tourism. However, his efforts to improve the town's financial condition are obstructed by the terrifying supernatural legends that surround the area. He initially dismisses all the legends and even tries to debunk them. To his surprise and terror, though, he ends up proving the legends are true, realizing that his town is actually haunted by not one but many mysterious supernatural forces. The original Apple TV show primarily seems to follow a Monster of the Week format, where each new installment addresses a new overarching threat in the town. Widow's Bay is primarily led by three characters: Tom Loftus, Matthew Rhys, Wick, Stephen Root, and Patricia, Kate O'Flynn. In the show's first 4 episodes, almost all supernatural threats have been reminiscent of the monsters from Stephen King and R.L. Stine's books. For instance, in episode 1, the show introduced a deadly fog, reminding one of Stephen King's The Mist. Episode 2 had a terrifying clown, who seemed very similar to Pennywise from IT. Widow's Bay's episode 3 introduced a scary sea hag, who shared many similarities with Rhea of the Coos from the Dark Tower. A touch of R.L. Stine's absurd horror comedy is also visible in all of these characters as they balance genuine menace with an almost exaggerated sense of grotesque silliness. The sense of danger they pose is never undermined, and, yet, they almost seem human and larger than life. Widow's Bay switches between horror and comedy without friction. Movies and shows in the horror-comedy subgenre usually incline more towards silly humor that pokes fun at existing tropes of the genre. Widow's Bay masterfully merges the two genres where some of its monster reveals somehow seem both bone-chilling and amusing. It also does not shy away from exploring myriad horror subgenres. For instance, in episodes 1 and 2, it is more psychological as it plays around with a viewer's sense of perception. The show's episode 3 takes a more mythical horror turn before episode 4 goes all out with its folk horror story. Combining so many horror subgenres and switching back and forth between scaring viewers and making them laugh could have made the series seem unfocused and tonally inconsistent. Surprisingly, however, Widow's Bay makes these contrasts work. It leverages these shifts by ensuring that viewers stay at the edge of their seats and never predict what lies ahead. In its first 4 episodes, Apple TV's Widow's Bay has been a rollercoaster ride, delivering both unsettling dread from Stephen King's works and offbeat humor from R.L. Stine's stories. It keeps getting better with every episode, and it is hard not to see how it could shape into one of the best horror shows of the century.